Let's get ready to rumble! Are you ready for this classic chronograph Smackdown? Watches, go to your corners and come out fighting.
Welcome to another episode of Adventures with Time. On this episode, my first head-to-head watch Smackdown. The other day, I opened my watch box to select a watch to wear, and while reviewing my collection, it occurred to me that I should try a comparison of the two chronographs in my holdings. So on this episode, my first head-to-head watch Smackdown. I'm sure you've seen other channels do one of these comparisons. Usually there's 10 categories, and they rate each watch on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of the categories, and then simply add up the totals to see which watch comes out on top. Well, I'm doing this a little differently, which I'll explain later. But first, let's meet our two contenders. In this corner, wearing a black leather perforated racing strap, is the Straton Legera bullhead. This watch measures 42 millimeters with a thickness at the bullhead of a whopping 21 millimeters and a lug-to-lug of 51 millimeters. It tips the scale at 130 grams. In the other corner, wearing a Hadley Roma green nylon strap with brown leather ends all the way from China, is the Seagull 1963. Standing just 38 millimeters wide with a thickness of 15 millimeters. This is a real lightweight at just 57 grams. Although both of these watches are chronographs, they are quite different in many ways, so a head-to-head comparison may not be appropriate, but I'm going to do it anyway, as it should be fun to compare them. Let's go over the rules. I'll review each watch against these 10 categories. But instead of rating each watch on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give my opinion as to which watch better performs in the category, and award points to that watch based on the following scale. 1 point for marginally exceeding the other watch, 2 points for somewhat exceeding the other watch, and 3 points for far exceeding the other watch. The other watch gets 0 points. At the end, I'll total up the scores. So let's begin.
The first category up is design. And for me, design means how suitable is the design of the watch for the purpose that it was intended. Now, these watches obviously both tell time, but the main complication is the chronograph function. So let's look at how well these two watches do for timing events. They both use a two-pusher system, one pusher to start and stop the timing, the other to reset the timing. Now, to me, the position of the pushers really doesn't have much of a factor in their suitability. I think both are equally fine. Where these watches differ is in how they record the elapsed time. The Seagull has a large second hand and a small subdial that will time up to 30 minutes, and that's it. The Legera also has a large second, but has two subdials, one to track 30-minute intervals and another subdial to track the number of 30-minute intervals that have elapsed, all the way up to 12 hours. So certainly the Legera has a greater timing capability. It also comes with a 12-hour rotating bezel, which can be used for a quick glance to get a rough idea of the elapsed time. So I'm going to give this one to the Straton Legera and give it 1 point, in that I think it slightly exceeds the timing capability of the Seagull. Next up is movement. And what I consider as part of movement is the quality, the accuracy, and the capabilities of the movement. The Legera comes with the ETA Valjoux 7750, a well-known movement for chronographs, while the Seagull comes with their ST19 movement. Both have good reputations. My experience with both has been very good. -5 to +4 seconds for the Seagull ST19 movement versus 0 to +9 seconds for the Valjoux 7750. So pretty equal on accuracy. But given that the Valjoux is an automatic movement and runs at 28,800 beats per hour, and the Seagull is a manual wind movement that runs at 21,600 beats per hour, I'm going to say that the Straton Legera somewhat exceeds the Seagull in this category, and therefore give it +2 points. The next category most people call prestige. Another name might be acknowledgement or admiration or historical significance. What I'm looking for in this category is, does the watch itself have any historical significance? Or does the brand have some notable reputation? And in general, do people, whether collectors or non-collectors, know of this watch and would have some admiration for it? Now, that in itself shouldn't impact one's enjoyment of a watch, but it would factor into the value or the ability to sell the watch should you want to get rid of it. From simply a historical sense, I think the Seagull comes out ahead. Although this watch is really a remake or reissue of the original military watch used in China during the 1960s, it does have some historical significance. Most non-collectors will not recognize either watch. However, watch enthusiasts should know about the Seagull and its history. On the other hand, the Seagull would probably go unnoticed on one's wrist, while the bullhead layout of the Legera and its wedge shape should provoke some interest. I think both watches have something going in this category, but I think the historical significance of Seagull gives it the edge, so I'm going to give Seagull a +1 here. Now we come to quality, and what quality is intended to cover is the materials, the level of finish, the craftsmanship, or any extras that are exhibited by the watch. Now both watches show nice finishing, although the movement detail isn't really visible on the Legera, so we don't get to count that. But I do think the Legera takes this one given the sapphire crystal, lume, although I'm not much of a lume junkie, the screw-down crown, the 100-meter water resistance, and the fact that it has a bezel. All these features add to the quality of the watch. So I'm going to give the Legera a +1 point here. Style is the category where we address aesthetics. How well does the watch look? Now, this is a hard category for me to assess on these two watches, as they are very different in their style. The Seagull has a fairly plain layout with somewhat muted colors, although it does have some nice gold indices and numerals on the dial, giving it a little flair and an air of grace. Whereas the Legera is a bit bolder, not only with its case shape, but with the multicolored dial and combination of brushed and polished case finishing. I'm going to give the edge to the Legera on this one, so it gets 1 point. Next up is versatility. And what I'm looking for here is in how many different wearing scenarios can the watch be used? Is it limited to just a few scenarios, or does it have versatility and can be worn in many different scenarios? I think given the wedge shape and that thickness of the Legera might limit its use in some cases. It probably wouldn't do well as a dress watch. However, I think the Seagull could certainly be worn in such cases. Even though the Seagull doesn't have a screw-down crown, it is rated for 30 meters of water resistance. So although I wouldn't wear it swimming, one probably could. So I'm going to give the edge to the Seagull in this category, simply because I think it has a broader set of wearing scenarios. So the Seagull gets 1 point here. Next is wearability, and this differs from versatility. This category to me covers how does the watch fit and feel on the wrist. Is it comfortable? Does it have problems on the wrist? Both watches feel comfortable on my wrist. The Legera, though, is significantly heavier than the Seagull. This wouldn't be an issue in itself. However, I've noticed that the wedge shape of the case seems to make the case off balance, so that unless one has the strap fairly snug, the watch can rotate or shift on the wrist towards the thicker bullhead side. I discussed this in my original review of the Legera. So I'm going to give wearability to the Seagull, and it gets +1 points. Durability really gets down to, will the watch stand up? Will it last a long time, even given some external impacts, whether it be rough treatment, extreme conditions, or any other factors? For me, I don't see any issues with either of these watches with respect to durability. So I'm going to simply call this a draw. This next category I'm calling Captivation. Some people call it the X factor or the catch-all category. To me, it really represents, is there something special about the watch that isn't covered in any of the other categories that gives the watch some special interest, that causes people to have more attraction or adoration or fascination with this watch? In this category, I'm trying to capture whether my level of interest with each watch will be retained over the years. Although many watches have great attributes, including offering a strong value proposition, with some we might lose interest over time. In this category, I need to give the edge to the Seagull. With the related history to this watch, its quality and clean design, I will never have any hesitation to wear the Seagull no matter what the activity. With my infrequent need to use a chronograph function, I can see the Legera over time possibly becoming one of those watches for which I really don't have the desire to wear. I don't know if this will happen, but that's just my feeling. So I'm going to give the edge to the Seagull, giving it 1 point. Now we come down to value. This is simply what you get for the price of the watch. And I'm going to let you know right away that this is the category where the two watches differ the greatest. Although the Legera has a lot to offer in its design, its style, and quality, the price is quite high at $925. And remember, that's the price I paid given that I selected the higher priced value movement. Compare that to the Seagull. At $300, you get a nicely designed chronograph with historical significance and a large breadth of wearing scenarios. You can't go wrong with that. I think this category definitely goes to the Seagull, whose value proposition far exceeds that of the Legera. So the Seagull gets a whopping +3 points.
Okay, let's total up the scores. So the winner of this matchup, according to my evaluation, is the Seagull 1963. But what do you think? Is my selection of categories appropriate? Remember, this is a comparison of how the watches match up for my collection, not the general collecting world. What I consider important in a watch for my own use. Are my scores for each category fair? What do you think? And do you like this type of a head-to-head smackdown? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and well, and I'll see you in my next video.